from today and for the next 100 days, I am going to be writing my first ever book. I also want you to be part of that journey as well. And for the next 100 days, I am going to go live every day, and I'm going to share with you some of the insights to what I'm writing about, some of the journey, and I'm also going to share with you some of the things I've never talked about before, ever. I feel now is the time to be able to do that and share it, because I think today, with the world as it is for many people a very challenging time. And I think, if anything, I would like to be able to give people that hope and inspiration that whilst we might be going through a really challenging time, there's huge opportunities as well. So I grew up in Ireland, went to school and college, all the things that we normally do. I qualified in university, but there was no work in Ireland. Went overseas, went to London, got my first job, worked there in an architectural engineering surveying practice for 10 years, then went and lived overseas in Asia, in Hong Kong, in Manila, Philippines, in Los Angeles, New York, then spent some time in Dubai, spent some time in Mumbai, and even in my corporate life, I also spent time in Australia, which is where I am now, but predominantly it was in the headquarter of the company I worked with in London, and I spent a long time in London. And then in 2011, I gave up that part of the corporate world, and then I started up some of my own businesses, and that's a big chunk of what my book is going to be about. For me, this is all brand new to me. I've obviously reached out to quite a lot of friends who have written books before, and I kind of got an idea of what the path is like. But for me, it's super exciting because I love new projects and I love new challenges. So the next 100 days, going to be writing my book. I'm going to be sharing that journey here on Facebook. You'll get some insights to the book. You'll also be able to contribute to it if you wish. You can ask questions and I'll try and answer them as best I can, either in the live or in messaging afterwards. So that's kind of set the scene. The book is going to be about how you can transition in your life. And if you know my story, I transitioned out of the corporate world and that high-paying job. You had, what you thought at that time was all of the security that you could ever want. Big salary, big car, big bonus, private health care, pension, all of those things. I decided I'd had enough of it and I wanted to get out. Wasn't forced out, wasn't kicked out, I just resigned. And then I transitioned into what I call the second stage, which is I owned my own businesses, a publication, a restaurant that didn't go well, a live music bar, consultancy work, and I did a whole range of things. And then in 2017, a number of things happened to me that happened to me in my personal life and actually happened in my business life, and in one particular case with one of my best friends. But in 2017, it made me rethink about what it is I wanted to do in life. I was very fortunate to come in contact with a really great group of people who are doing what I'm doing now, taking my knowledge and experience and being able to share it with people around the world. And what really transformed it for me is when I set up my Young Entrepreneurs Academy that I used to teach in schools in Australia. The education system today is broken and it needs a complete overhaul. What I believe is really important for them today that the education system don't teach them, which is around developing a strong growth mindset, being able to help them problem solve, use their imagination, using critical thinking, and just showing more compassion and empathy. And so I put that together in an online course, and I launched it last year in April, and it just went completely, just skyrocketed. Absolutely. People buying it all around the world. They still are. So I took that knowledge and experience and I decided to put together a coaching program, and now I coach people all around the world on how they can take their knowledge and experience, position themselves as the person with that knowledge and experience, being able to package it in a digital format, and then being able to promote it to people around the world. And it is, without doubt, the most enjoyable time in my life right now. I have got a big desire to be able to now put that into a book, which is the main part of the book, but it's also showing how it is I transitioned out of that 9-to-5 job. I think a big part of it is to be able to share with you not only my own experiences, but the lessons I learned and the things that if you are looking to transition out of the corporate or out of that 9-to-5 or out of that business where you are frustrated by the number one thing, that you're trading your valuable time for money. If you are doing that and you're frustrated by that, my book is going to be very helpful for you. I'd love you to be part of it. I'm super excited about this. This is day 2 of me writing my book. Commitment usually means getting outside your comfort zone and doing something that maybe you're very resistant about doing. For me, committing is so important when you want to do anything, but it all starts with commitment. Today I want to share with you 3 ideas because they are 3 things that I'm currently doing and certainly will be applying to writing my book. For me, the 23rd of May is the date that I'm committing to actually spending the 100 days to writing my book. Now, the second step, and that's something that I really want to get across to you, is start actually getting the content together. You've got to start writing it, and then you've got to begin about, what is the editing and the publishing process after that. Once you've actually set the date, almost forget about it and just focus on the process. Whether that's a half an hour, 2 hours, whatever it might be, create a daily routine. So just to recap, on the 3 steps, make sure the first thing is commit to doing it and actually put a date down in your calendar. Number 2, re-engineer back from that date what it is the activities are that need to make sure that that date arrives. And then number 3, create good habits around the daily activities that will take you to where it is you're trying to get to. This is day 3 of me writing my book. Today I want to talk about structure. I was in a mastermind about 3 years ago in America with a thought leader out there called Brendan Burchard. Brendan has this saying, and you might have heard it before, the time to have the map is when you enter the woods. And it is so important, I believe, that if you want to do anything and you want to do it properly, you actually have the map. This is the 4th day of me sharing with you how it is I'm going about writing my very first book. I want to share with you today what I believe is the number 1 thing. It is really crucial that you get one thing right. It is really important that you are really able to articulate clearly what your message is. And that's why when I coach people through my 12-week program to get online, right up front, the number 1 thing I get them to really be clear on about is their messaging. I'm going to try and approach this in 3 parts. Number 1, what is it that you know that you want to convey? In my case, what I know, and this is central to my book, how is it you transition out of that 9 to 5 or business you own? And the messaging is how I have been able to do it. And then the third part is how is it that I'm portraying that in my book that's very different to what other people are doing. And my way is unique because it's my journey, and that's what I'm going to be sharing in the book. Hey, it's Jimmy and welcome to day 5. The opportunity now to be able to take your knowledge and experience that you've gained, to be able to help people around the world in a way that has never been there before, and being able to monetize it is unique. And that's essentially what my book is about. I believe you owe it to yourself and to your family to take back control, to build some stability and security in your life, and be able to do it in a way that I think is where everything is going in the future. Everything is moving online. And you don't have to do this like I do it as a full-time job. You could start as a side hustle, a side project, and just build up some additional security by having some additional income coming through for you. And really, my book is going to start with my story in 2017 because 3 big things happened to me in my life that really rocked my foundations. But before I get on to that today, I just want to take you back to 2011, which is 10 years ago, when after nearly 20 years in the corporate world, I had pleased my dad so much. And in many ways, I was brought up with this belief how I'd gone in, from college into a job at the very beginning, worked my way all the way up through the organization, got on the main board, we floated the company on the stock market in London, and we raised huge amounts of capital, and we made ourselves very, very wealthy. But I think one of the things I've realized is that with money doesn't come happiness. There doesn't come certain aspects of freedom that you can get in your life that I think when you are, as I felt sometimes, handcuffed. So long story short, in 2011, I handed my resignation in to our CEO because I was on the main board. It took quite a long time to be able for them to release me because there was a whole issue with the stock market and so on and so forth because I was the main board director. But anyway, I eventually got out, and then I started up my own businesses. I had a publication, I had a consultancy business, I had a restaurant, and I had a couple of other businesses, and there were 1 or 2 of them that really did bad. And in 2017, which was 6 years after I came out of the corporate world, I was owning my own business now and I had a number of them. Three things happened to me that really rocked. Number one, I got into a business venture that for the first time in my whole life began to lose a lot of money. I had never been in business where things just went completely pear-shaped. And I was in this business where it lost lots of money, number one. Number two, this was the second big thing that really rocked me, is I got divorced. And that was really traumatic on me personally. And then number three, which I think was the one that had the biggest impact on me, was that my best school friend that I had met on my very first day going to boarding school in Ireland when I was about 6 or 7. So I'd known him for about 40 years, died from a brain tumor. And that was the one that really rocked me. So I can really feel for you. I can relate to where you might be at this moment in time because I've been there myself. But the lessons I've learned is that if you're in a job that you lose or in a business that goes under and you lose lots of money as I did, you can make that money back again. If you're in a relationship that falls apart, you can find love again, definitely. One of the things we can never get back is time. And I think when I lost my best school friend, I realized at that moment that he was the same age as me, and that the things that I wanted to do in life and the things I missed out on in the past, I could never get back. And in that moment, I had what I call mortality motivation. I wanted to live the rest of my life intentionally and do things that had a meaning and helped other people. And then it was about 6 months after that, I got an email from a lady who, just out of the blue, changed my life because she asked me if I'd help her 16-year-old son who had got some issues with, basically not having a meaning and purpose in life. And I set up my Young Entrepreneurs Academy from that, which was January 2018. And then once I'd set that up and started teaching it in the schools, turned it into an online course, and now people today are buying it all around the world. It changed my life pretty much forever. Welcome to day 6 of writing my very first book. I want to take you back though to the beginning of this 10 years, which was in 2010. I was working in London in a big corporate business, and I had been there and we'd grown the business significantly. We'd gone through a flotation, which is like a public listing on the stock market. We'd made money, and that was good, but it doesn't necessarily bring you happiness. And things were beginning to happen. The culture was beginning to change, and I felt more and more frustrated. There were things I wanted to do in my life that I knew I couldn't do in a 9-to-5 job. I had the alarm clock every morning. I had the boss or the line manager that, just didn't value what you did. Sometimes you had an environment that was very, very politically toxic. And I had all of these things that were going on, and I wanted to see if there was another way. And I started doing some research into it, and I listed out a lot of those things in a black book. But the biggest problem I had was I didn't have clarity. And I just spoke to my daughter this morning. She is 26, and for the last 6 years, she's built 2 businesses from scratch in London, and they're hair and beauty salon businesses. And her whole identity is tied around those 2 businesses. Everything she's been doing is to build those 2 businesses, and they're really successful. And then guess what? Last year and this year, the pandemic hit. And it's considered in Britain a non-essential business. It's a bricks and mortar business. And for the 3rd time recently, those businesses have been closed down. So Kimberly, my daughter, has kind of been left in this place where I think a lot of people are today, just waiting for something to happen, waiting for the government to allow the business to reopen. And it's not a good space to be in today. When I was back in 2011 beginning this journey of coming out of the corporate world, if there was one thing I could have done with more than ever, was to have that mentor or coach who could say, Jimmy, this is what I'm doing at the moment. This is an option for you. You don't have to do it, but if you do it, this is the route you need to take, and these are the things you need to avoid doing. That kind of mentoring and that kind of coaching is invaluable. And if you're charged for that, do not see it as an expense. See it as an investment in your future. Day 7 of writing my book. But I want to share with you today a few ideas of what I did. Journal what it is you want to do when you leave the corporate world or the 9 to 5 or a business you own where you're trading your time for money. Number 2, set specific dates when it is you want to make things happen, particularly the date when you're actually going to leave. And number 3, make sure that you implement on the actions, schedule them in your calendar, your diary, whatever it might be, to make sure that you actually do it. Hopefully that's been helpful. This is day 7, and I'm going to be doing those kind of things today in my own business, but I'm also going to be writing about them in a lot more detail into my book. Wherever you are, have a great Thursday, and I'll talk to you again tomorrow.